This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV, and we're very pleased to be joined today again by John Allen, the founder and the president of Quantum Marine Stabilizers, to discuss Quantum's ship stabilization system and U.S. Coast Guard modernization. John, to start us off, can you give us an update on Quantum Marine Stabilizers' current workload?
I sure can, Greg, and thanks for having me. Round two. I obviously passed round one, so I'm back again. Anyway. Yeah, we've things have been moving along for us quite well. There's a lot of activity out there in all fields. As you know, a big field for us is the yachting industry, but also the military and commercials moving steadily. Also, the offshore, overseas military and commercial applications seem to be quite on the uptick, and definitely in the patrol boat business, which we all know patrol boats is definitely the go-to thing these days. And certainly for companies like Quantum, where we have a sort of a great product range that fits into the patrol boat market. So we are, extensively engaged in bidding processes for offshore, not so much in the US, although there is good possibilities for the US. We do see a lot of activity in the European theater, and also, down outside of that in the far Middle East and Far East as well.
So John, that is interesting. Can you discuss specifically Quantum's activity in the military sector?
Well, generally no, but we can. And there's certain areas for sure that it's good to discuss, and there's a lot out there. As most people know, the FRC program for the Coast Guard has been and continues to be the most successful program. And we're now 44 ships in service with more in line, and I think Bollingers deliver a ship every 6 to 8 weeks. So it's a great program, and all indicators say that the end of the day the thing will be at least 100 ships, and it could go more. So that's a great program for us, and we're certainly lucky to have it. Also, the OPC program, which was originally started about 6 or 7 years ago. Then it was awarded 3 years ago, and now it's back on the market. So there's a number of yards rebidding that program, and the OPC also has great potential, although the initial orders were quite small, as a replacement for a number of the Coast Guard boats, including the WEMAC class. I think it's going to be great. So that's a really nice avenue. On the overseas front, we are moving steadily along with the Australian Navy OPC program, or OPV program as it's called, and that program, although I think initially was only 12 boats or something, also has potential to go further. So there is a number of programs for us that are moving that we can certainly talk about because they're widely known. But there's many other things afoot, let's say, that could be of great interest here in the US, where the military development continues, and companies like Quantum can get quite involved in that. So that's where we are with that.
So John, obviously it's a big world. There are many markets to serve. If you had to narrow it down, where do you see the best opportunities in the coming 12 to 24 months?
Well, the crystal ball's a little cloudy in that direction, but we do have some good ideas. I think one area that's is steady and potentially growing is the foreign military sales here in the US, and that's predominantly not just new equipment, but it's the refurbishment of older ships that are being decommissioned by the US and then sold on to other countries. And there's a lot of work there for everybody, because generally when boats are recommissioned for sale through foreign military sales, they invest in the ship. So they put new hardware on the ships, they, rebuild things, they might upgrade the stabilizers, and ideally for us, that's good, or even replace them, even better. But in general, it creates work for US people. And these programs, I think, still continue. We see this, and we see a potential for growth, because there's more of the US Navy and Coast Guard ships are retired, then there's more vessels to be sold on. So I think that's one you got to really keep your eye on, and what comes out. And they're not big numbers. It might be 2 or 3 ships here, or 2 ships somewhere else. So we're not talking massive programs, but they're really good programs for especially American companies, a similar size to Quantum. So I feel that's a big area. And then, we've really got to keep our eye on the patrol boat business, especially in the Far East. As America seems to pull a little bit away from the Far East. There's more, local interest, call it, in building their own fleets. So that's quite important. And then there's a long range of foreign military sales stuff, where stuff that was already sold and maybe coming back for refit or being refitted in other countries. And these are all really interesting programs that don't, may not hit the radar of the giant corporations, but they're certainly excellent for, again, companies like ours.
I've been covering this business for over 30 years, and I know that companies like Quantum have to invest continuously in product and system development. Can you give us a rundown of some of the latest innovations and technologies from Quantum?
We do. So not just Quantum, but other companies in our range also have to think about the future. And the future is always locked into like what you can develop and stay out ahead of the game. And then also reintroduce that into the market. So you have to develop it and reintroduce it. It's a little bit more difficult to do that in the military commercial world. In the large yacht field, it's a little bit more flexible. But we do constantly work on development in many, many areas, all from hydrodynamic design to control technology to mechanical and hydraulics. And in our case, two recent developments is our a rack and pinion drive actuator unit, which is really something we've been building for our maglev stabilizers for many years, and we now build a version for our fixed fin stabilizers. Very robust device, certainly has some real potential for military commercial applications. So that's one product. And then we've also developed a dynamic load control system in the last few years too, that we now recently patented, that allows us to smooth the power requirements for our equipment, because the power requirements for a stabilizer tend to fluctuate with the movement of the stabilizer. And on a yacht or ship, commercial ship, military boat, that's not always acceptable. So whether or not you draw a certain amount of power, to have power fluctuations is usually frowned upon. So we developed a system that allows us to smooth that out. It doesn't go away completely, but we smooth it out. Sort of like the Intel inside, so to speak. So it's not some really, fancy looking piece of equipment that you can show to everybody. You can only show its benefit, what it does. And, we embed it, of course, into the control system.
So I appreciate your time. I just have one more question. Unfortunately, 15 months on, we're still discussing COVID and its impact. Can you discuss how COVID has materially impacted Quantum to date?
I think it's the biggest impact that we've had is the here and now stuff. And the here and now is basically service and support. So, building product, we can build product as soon as we can get materials, of course. We can build product, we can deliver product all over the world. And, that doesn't seem to be dramatically affected. But the support of that product's a whole nother story. And, our service business, Quantum is essentially a service company. We build our product and we support our product through its life cycle. So we don't really use outside people. So we have two service departments, one in Europe and one here in the US. And what's been really difficult for us this last year and a half is traveling, because, you just can't put teams of service engineers together and send them to, Brazil or Mexico or Southeast Asia or anywhere like that. It's complicated and difficult. And to that end, we've worked diligently to improve our remote support. And currently, we don't really build a system that doesn't have remote access. So we have remote access to our equipment, which really has helped. And it's been an absolute score this last year and a half that we can sort of dial into a stabilizer and see what's going on if the client has issues. And by no means can we always resolve everything, but we certainly can get a bit of a heads up on the issues that they're having. And then the second phase, which is something we're starting to work on now, and I think also is something that's grown out of the recent times, is live feed. So we can now equip somebody on board the ship, an engineer on board the ship, with a set of goggles, glasses, and they can actually go right to the product. They can look at the product. We can see what they see. We can talk to them, communicate. We can show drawings separately. So there's just a myriad of things we can do remotely. And again, it doesn't completely eliminate us having to go on site, but it can really ratchet it back and we can support the product. So I think they're two really key items that in, say 2 or 3 years ago, people would have not spent the time developing those products, or if those products were available, companies like us wouldn't have actually looked at them. And now we're looking at those things and we're seeing the real benefits. And I think that's not just Quantum, that's a lot of companies that are heavily engaged in, global service. And that's what we do.
John, you brought up an interesting point about digitalization and its increased use across the maritime industry. Now, you're dealing with a lot of specific markets where I'm sure security is heightened, shall we say. How secure is your digitalization solution to your clients?
That's a good question. Predominantly we're talking about remote access, and vessels are always a little careful about allowing companies in access into their system, because essentially you're dialing into the ship's net system and then finding you're a piece of equipment. For us, we put a lot of effort into that, and we have a dedicated server here in Florida, and the internet modules that we use can only connect to that server. So you couldn't dial in from any other location. They only recognize that one server. So we worked hard with that. We record every communication. We record every time we connect to a remote access device, and we can record, the duration we're connected and certain things that we did. So we have a real log and a record that's maintained here. So if there is any issues, we can address them. But that's a great question, and something that we have to promote to our clients all the time to get them to give access to the hardware.
Okay. And again, John, I appreciate your time. I look forward to following up with Quantum in the future.
Great. It was a pleasure.